Good morning and welcome to BJC Halacha Day, number 2076. Halacha that keeps the Yetzer Hara away. We're learning halachas every day of our lives, and we're guaranteed a place in the world to come by doing so. It's not always easy, but the consistency is what it's about. And it's amazing, just one short halacha, sometimes a little bit longer. But the point is that the consistency, every day we're learning something, we're growing, and we're gaining the world to come. Dedicated in love and memory of Daniela Basfir and Neshama Sheva Aliyah. There's 221 chapters in the Yetzer Hara. We are on chapter 112, entitled Which Chametz is Prohibited to Keep in One's Possession on Pesach and which is permitted to be kept. And we're on the fifth halacha in this chapter. In earlier times, some inks were made by cooking the various ingredients, such as gall nuts, ferrous sulfate, and or copper sulfate, in beer produced from barley and thus chametz, right? So that's what we did, because beer is chametz. Ink that was cooked with beer before Pesach may be used for writing during Chol Hamoed Pesach, the intermediate days of Pesach. This is because it has become unfit even for canine consumption. We already learned about that before, that if even a dog cannot eat it, then it's permitted during Pesach. Again, he says this is because it has become unfit even for canine consumption prior to Pesach. This, however, is true only if the chametz was totally unfit for canine consumption before Pesach. If the chametz was fit for canine consumption when Pesach began, it became prohibited at that time and must be destroyed even if it later becomes unfit for canine consumption. So again, you had to be unfit way before Pesach. We'll do some footnotes soon, but let's see what he says here. In all similar cases where the chametz has become totally unfit for canine consumption before Pesach, one is permitted to have benefit from it and to keep it in his possession on Pesach. But if an idolater cooked ink with beer on Pesach, it is prohibited for a Jew to benefit from it, for the chametz of an idolater is also prohibited for benefit to a Jew on Pesach. Thus, its status as well is determined at the onset of Pesach. Since it was fit for canine consumption at that time, it remained prohibited, even though it later became unfit for canine consumption. Okay, let's see some footnotes here, get a little more clarity on what's going on. Okay, he says here, again, ink that was cooked with beer before Pesach. So he says that is before the end of the 5th hour, when chametz must be removed from one's possession. So as long as it was cooked before. And then he says that you can use it during Chol Hamoed. The first 2 days and final 2 days of Pesach in Eretz Yisrael, right? In Eretz Yisrael, the first and final days are Yom Tov. So, outside of Israel, we keep the first 2 and the last 2. In Israel, just the first and last. And day 2 through 6 are Chol Hamoed. For us, it's days 3 through 6 are Chol Hamoed. But he says, okay, the first and final days are Yom Tov, when writing is totally prohibited. The laws of Chol Hamoed, the intermediate days, have been discussed above. We talked about Chol Hamoed, and we talked about when writing is permitted, because it's not always permitted, even on Chol Hamoed. Due to the gall nuts and other bitter ingredients, that's why it's no longer fit for canine consumption. And let's do one more footnote over here. One may therefore use a topical ointment containing grain alcohol on Pesach, even for a condition that is not life-threatening, provided that it became unfit for canine consumption before Pesach. There you have it. So you can use ointment when a person's not feeling well, God forbid, or has a cut, because we can assume usually that it became unfit for canine consumption well before Pesach. Didn't just finish making the ointment right before Pesach. I'm talking about over here. Thank you very much for listening. This is BJC Halacha 36 100 for the gold. Have a great day.